All right, everybody, good afternoon. It is my pleasure to be with you today. May I please get a quick sound check from someone on Zoom who can unmute, let you know you can hear me okay.
You're good.
Perfect, and that's something I do every day when I teach my HyFlex class. I always start with a welcome and a sound check to make sure that students can hear me, but also that I can hear them. Okay, so we'll get into more of those little strategies and tips and tricks throughout today's presentation. But first, let me begin with a heartfelt thank you for being here today. Anybody who doesn't know me, my name is Michael Robertson. I am an associate professor of anthropology here at Long Beach City College. I've been teaching online for about a decade, and currently I'm serving as the online education faculty coordinator, which is just a long fancy title to say I get to serve faculty just like you as we all navigate the world of online learning together. So I appreciate you coming in here today. A few items of housekeeping, before we jump into the topic. First and foremost, you already heard this meeting is being recorded. I heard from a lot of folks who couldn't be here with us today that they would like to watch it later and learn a little bit more about what HyFlex is. So hence I'm recording. This will be posted up for faculty to watch within a few days. Secondly, we do have the closed captions enabled for this meeting. You can just click the CC button at the bottom of your Zoom screen and they should be enabled for you. And then finally, you are welcome to participate. You can use the chat, you can raise your hand. I will have a designated section for Q&A at the end of the presentation, but if something burning just comes up while I'm mid-slide, please feel free to raise your hand or drop it in chat. Also, this is worth 1 hour of flex credit, so you don't need to sign in. Just by virtue of logging into Zoom, I see who is here. I will say if you don't have your full name, so your first and last name as your Zoom name, do either change that or just drop your full name into the chat so that I have the full name for that flex credit that you're earning for being here today. Okay, so let's begin with a little quick share. Here we go. Yes. Everyone is on Zoom. I don't have anyone in room, which frankly didn't surprise me, and I am okay with it. I'm used to it. But when you are on Zoom, I have 2 questions for you to type into the chat. And if you really want to share vocally, that's great. Just raise your hand so I know you'd like to share out loud. But first of all, please type in what subject you teach. And then secondly, what teaching modalities have you used at Long Beach City College? And I put some options up on the screen for you: online async, online sync, hybrid, on campus, or perhaps other. So please take a moment, throw that in the chat for me, and take a look as other people participate. Let's see. Okay, we have Japanese. Megan teaches education, online sync, hybrid, fully on campus. Becky Black, nutrition, async, sync on campus, great. Hiromi, in person. Okay, so a variety. This is good. On campus, hybrid, all of the above. All of the above. Okay, in person, great. Welcome, welcome. Christy, I didn't see you come in. Hi, Christy. Comm studies, sync, async. So wow, what a variety. I love that. And Bailey, it's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you for coming. Yes, 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 this is good. Thank you so much for humoring me and doing a little quick share. And this is something that I do every single day with my students at the top of the classroom time. I always have some way for everyone to participate, either vocally, you could unmute, or something in the chat, just so I'm 100% sure, okay, we're all here, right? And usually, well, I'll talk more about what it's like in class in a few minutes. All right, so thank you for that. So let's talk about some goals for today. Broke it down into 3 sections. I'd like to introduce HyFlex. What is that all about? How have I done it? What opportunities did it give me and what challenges did it present me? And then I want to share some of the lessons I learned as a new HyFlex teacher, because I've never done this before until this semester. I've read a lot about it. I've seen some of the trainings about it, but this spring was my first go at it. And then thirdly, I want to offer some recommendations. If this is enticing to you, if you're up for a new pedagogical and technological challenge, I have some things that you might want to know before you take on that challenge. Okay. And then, of course, at the end, we're going to take plenty of time for Q&A, and you can ask me anything you want about what it's been like teaching HyFlex. So let's get started. What is HyFlex? There are different ways of doing HyFlex. And in my reading and research on this, they all seem to say relatively the same thing. But yeah, it's the combination of hybrid and flexible, emphasizing student choice on how they participate in a class. Now, Wally et al., some of the leaders or lead thinkers on HyFlex modality, they explain that a true HyFlex class has the following 3 elements to it. 1, students can participate asynchronously if they so choose. Secondly, they can participate synchronously, so like on a Zoom call if they choose. Or thirdly, they can come on campus and attend class that way if they choose. So that is, I keep saying that phrase, if they choose, because that is the goal, where one day a student can attend in class, and then maybe the next class meeting day, they attend on Zoom. And then maybe the next week, oh, they're just going to do async work for that week on their own time. So that is, according to many authors, what a true HyFlex is. So here's what I did instead. And again, I'm not discounting what other authors have said, but to just try it for my first time, I took a slightly different approach. First of all, I was in the classroom every day, T1309, which is where I'm standing right now. And I'm here every classroom, and I ask the students to come to that classroom, or they can log into Zoom, just like all of you have. The T building and the M building have HyFlex capabilities built into most classrooms. And that is, I have a camera in the back, I have microphones in the ceiling, and then of course I have the usual projector and screen for students who are in the classroom too. And so when I talk, you can hear me, and when you talk, everybody in the classroom can hear you. That is the idea. And then for the third bit, the Canvas portion, it wouldn't be me if I didn't have the Canvas portion. I just went ahead and put all of their assessments on Canvas. So all of their quizzes, all of their writing assignments, obviously a lot of my announcements and reminders. I don't do any quizzes or things in the classroom. I just put it all on Canvas and said, that's what you do on your own time. But you need to be with me every class meeting, either in person or on Zoom. So far, that has worked. But I also want to show you what this looks like from a scheduling perspective and what it looks like in my syllabus and my Canvas shell. So let me switch on over to my screen here. Here we are. And let's see, there's my presentation. Yes, so this is, let me make Zoom a little smaller. This is the schedule of classes for this current semester, spring 2023. And when students click on linguistic anthropology, they see the meeting pattern, Monday, Wednesdays, 9:35 to 11. But for the location, I worked with scheduling and academic services to have HyFlex as that location. And furthermore, we have the class notes, and this is a little longer than it should be. In fact, the synchronous online class shouldn't be there at all. But this top portion, HyFlex class, emphasizes, hey, we are in T1309, but you can also join on Zoom, et cetera, et cetera. And we looked at a number of other colleges, their class schedules, so that we can adopt language in our schedule that was fairly representative of how other colleges do this, because we want to make it very clear when students sign up for the course, that's the expectation. And I see you in chat. Yes, academic services, absolutely, Vincent. And Brent Gilmore is a great contact who can make this happen. Yes, yes, yes. Here's my Canvas shell. Okay, if you've been to a workshop with me, this might look familiar to you, but I made some pretty substantial modifications for the HyFlex modality. Let me show you. This is the home page, and first and foremost, boom, this is HyFlex class. Okay, here's what we're going to do every Monday, Wednesday. We are always meeting. It is your choice to come to class or on Zoom. And then I put a button. Look, they click this button, and I'm not going to do it because I don't want to launch a Zoom meeting and be knocked out of this one. But my students click a button in Canvas, and they are taken to the same meeting ID every single day, every Monday, Wednesday during that time slot. I created the Zoom meeting through Tech Connect Zoom in my Canvas shell. And that's helpful because one, it's a recurring meeting. So it always has the same meeting ID again and again and again. But also, it appears in the class calendar so that if students happen to have the Canvas app on their phone, they will get a reminder of my class meeting every Monday and every Wednesday. And today you saw the optional office hours meeting reflected right here. For the Canvas shell itself, once you get into the modules, every week is rather simple, whereas I outline what we're doing for a given week, I put their homework, and I put their quiz. And that's what they do. And every objectives and goals page outlines what we're doing that week and also gives them a to-do list with, guess what? Our Monday, Wednesday recurring Zoom link there, right? Again, I wanted to remind them almost excessively that yes, Monday, Wednesday, we're meeting. Monday, Wednesday, we're meeting. Here's where you go, or here's what you click on. Along with that, my syllabus, okay, speaks to that as well. Put information about class meetings, detailing that. And I even devoted a section of my syllabus explaining a little bit more about what HyFlex is and being honest with this particular class and saying that I'm doing a pilot of this modality. And I appreciate you signing up for the class so that we can all learn a little bit more about teaching and learning in HyFlex. And then finally, while I'm on the subject of informing students, my classes sometimes struggle with enrollment. Linguistic anthropology is kind of specialized. So I made advertisements. And part of that was, yes, please enroll in my class. But the other part was, what is HyFlex? So I found that that education component, that clearly explaining what HyFlex is, was an essential step so that my students arrived on the first day of class with full knowledge of what they had signed up for. Okay? So that worked to my advantage, is very carefully working with the class schedule, my Canvas shell, advertisements, and my syllabus to have very consistent and detailed messaging over this modality. Let's get back to the show. See someone in chat. Yes, of course. Yeah, I share my syllabus freely. You are welcome to borrow it. Maybe I can drop it in the chat once I'm done talking today. Yes, of course, Sterling. Good to see you, by the way. Okay. How did it go? Well, it's complicated. But I'm going to tell you some of the opportunities and some of the challenges that I have faced, and all in the hopes that these are things that you can take away if you want to try this out, or even if you're teaching hybrid, a lot of these things might be applicable to you. So let's begin with just a survey of the opportunities that it afforded to me. One, it was really exciting to plan this out. It was an exciting new pedagogy for me because I had been teaching asynchronously for such a long time, and then synchronously, and I was like, oh, I wonder how I can blend that together, because I also really love being in the classroom. So HyFlex was a really exciting opportunity to try that out. The students, and I'll show you one of their surveys in a moment, but the students in my class and who are still in my class, they love this modality. They have told me time and time again, oh, the flexibility is great. Sometimes a student will come in class, but then, oh, their bus was late, so they just log in on Zoom for that day. And they're still able to come to class and not miss out on any of the content or information. And then for me personally also, it's strengthened my skill set. It's helped me be, it's in many ways, a more attentive online teacher and a more flexible online and in-person teacher. So that's been really transformative for me personally. Now the challenges, okay? Now I'm not gonna say that teaching HyFlex is the hardest thing I've ever done. I'm not gonna say that. But I will say that learning to teach this way while teaching this way has been one of the hardest things I've done in a little while, okay? It's been challenging, it's been tough. And a lot of that difficulty just came down to practice. I needed practice of setting up the technology, of interacting with students in person and on Zoom in an equal and equitable manner. And that's not something that you can read about in an article or a book. You just have to practice it. I always think about it as, and I can explain to you how to drive a car in just a few minutes, but how long does it take you to actually become a proficient driver? Well, you need practice behind the wheel. So that's what I really needed, and I didn't have, unfortunately. The technology, it does not always cooperate. We know that. We've been through a lot of these before. Just on Monday, 2 days ago, I had my class in here at 9:35 a.m. and I always arrive early. I always arrive, the class begins at 9:35. I usually arrive no later than 9:10. And I come early so I can set up my camera, test the speakers, log into Zoom, bring up my lecture materials. And just this past Monday, the camera wasn't working. Right? So I called IT and I put in a ticket, but the camera wasn't working, so I had to use my laptop camera instead. And those of you on Zoom, you see I have my laptop right here on the podium next to me. So I just turned that camera on instead for that day. Now, thankfully, IT was able to fix it for today. And then also, this is another thing where the last point of your challenge is low attendance. And I'll expand upon this a little bit more, but I said earlier, I'm not surprised that all of my wonderful colleagues today have attended on Zoom only, that I have no one in the classroom, all right? That happens sometimes in my class as well, or even just this morning, I had one student in the physical classroom and the rest of the class was all on Zoom, just like you. And I say that can put a bit of a toll, at least on me, because, and maybe you feel this way too, but often when I teach, when I do a lecture or an activity or a discussion, I tend to very much thrive on the energy of the students in the room, right? You know how we can read the room, see their energy, match it appropriately or adjust it, right? That's very hard to do when I have one student in the classroom and everyone else just on the screen behind me. So that can make the job a bit more challenging than I was personally ready for. But I'll talk more about the attendance in a few minutes. Let's talk student feedback. I mentioned that my students love this modality. And so I've been surveying them. I've administered one mid-semester survey. I'm also under tenured faculty evaluation, so that was another survey. And then at the end of the semester, I'm going to give them one more anonymous survey. I don't want to over-survey them. And sometimes I just start class with a 5 or 10 minute check-in. Hey, yo, how's this going for you? How's school? Right? And some of those are really meaningful conversations, by the way. Just take 5, 10 minutes at the beginning of class. How are things? Talk to me. And really, really rich discussions. But let me share with you some of their survey results. Let me get out of the slides. Yes. Okay, yeah, so you should be seeing this now. Let me make that a tad bit larger for you all at home. Okay, here we go. So I asked them first thing, so far, how have you attended class? And the majority said only on Zoom. And then you see the proportions after that. I only had one student who has only attended in-class meetings. So definitely a favoring for Zoom, although sometimes I tell them. Sometimes I'll say, hey class, by the way, next week's topic, it would be helpful if you learn this way to practice with a partner. And so if you want to be in class for next week's topic, I would encourage you to do that. And on those days, I might have a few more show up in class than usual. Oh, and then they went on to explain a little bit about why they attend the way they do. Like one has a 2-hour commute. I don't blame them for zooming in every day. Okay. Not having a car, not having a parking pass. And then another student said, I learn better in class, so I'm going to keep coming to class. I tend to run late. I'm living far away. It's convenience. Okay, don't have a car, etc., etc. And all of these are anonymous, by the way. Let's see, moving on down. And then I asked some questions, just really getting some feedback on my performance as a HighFlex instructor. Want to make sure that they feel I'm prepared for class. The flexibility has had a positive effect on their learning. Everybody agrees, or in blue strongly agrees that, yeah, this is working for them. The teacher uses technology to support my learning. Again, strongly agree or agree. And how satisfied are you with the class? Yeah, so again, rather favorable responses. Here, that brown bar on the far right represents students who have never attended in person. Okay. And then some suggestions, whereas, they talk about things like, well, actually, I'll show you. This is really good feedback. My students are fantastic. One of them recommended a little clip-on microphone, like a lapel mic for me, because sometimes the microphones in the ceiling don't pick up. If I were to move around someplace else, it might fade out a little bit. And even now, I have to project a little bit more than I usually would in a classroom of this size. Let's see. Yeah, tech issues will resolve themselves with experience, so on and so forth. Yep. One student suggests that I remove a peer if they forget to mute themselves. Okay, so I mean, I get that frustration too. We've all felt that frustration at some point. Julie, I see your question. The cap on the course was 40. And at the beginning excuse me, at the beginning of the semester, I only had 22. So it was a small group to begin with. And now that we're past the withdrawal deadline, I'm down to 20. So I lost 2 students throughout the course, and we actually talked about it on why it's a good decision for them to withdraw. Yeah, it was a small course anyway. Okay, so that is some student feedback. Let's get back to the deck. Here we go. Okay, student feedback, and now attendance. Yes, so I already mentioned the class meeting pattern. Every Monday, Wednesday, 9:35 to 11, and I start on time, and I usually end right on time. But again, I'm always here early. Okay, at about 9:10 at the latest, I'll arrive and get everything ready to go. I break my class into 2 categories, and I refer to them as such. I say, okay, my Zoomers, and I have my in-roomers, and they know exactly who I'm talking about because we built that terminology in our time together this semester. And the majority of them attend on Zoom. Okay, told you I have 22 students. On a typical day, 20 now after the drops, on a typical day, I will have 3, maybe 4 students in room, and the rest 16, 17 on Zoom. And then lately, I think because the semester's almost done, everybody's getting really busy, maybe a little bit stressed out. I've had 1 or 2 in-roomers in my classroom. And it's usually the same week after week. Yeah, there are some students who I've never seen in person, but then there's 1 student who's here every day consistently. Oh, and I forgot to mention, let me go back. I do not require my Zoom students to turn on their cameras. I mean, no sooner would I ask all of you, my colleagues, turn on your camera. Like, I'm not going to do that. I check in and encourage their participation in other ways, and they are always welcome to turn on their cameras, but they typically don't. And those of you who've taught synchronously, you can speak to that experience as well. But we typically have them participate in the chat by unmuting, raising their hands, and so on, other little techie tricks, so that I can ensure that they are actually on the other side of the computer. I do have a student, and I'll mention this too. If you have students in room who are somewhat soft-spoken, I try to have them sit right under a microphone because I have microphone there, and there, so it captures, right? So I try to have the students sit right under the microphone, but they're really soft-spoken. So I have gotten in the habit, whenever any student in class shares out loud, I will typically repeat or summarize what they just said so the on-Zoomers can hear it too. Because I know they can hear me. I have a microphone right there, and I can be rather loud. So I don't want to make the soft-spoken students feel uncomfortable. Okay. So that leads us into, so how did I actually teach a HyFlex class? Well, I'm going to be honest with you. Initially, I feel like my pedagogy reverted to straight lecture. And there are several reasons for that. And it's something I've actively tried to work on this semester. Usually, when I teach an on-campus class, I like to move around, teach from the back of the room instead of the front of the room, have the students get up and move around and intermingle during discussions. But when I saw myself in this classroom on the camera and then also on the screen, I felt stuck in a way to this bubble in the classroom. And yes, I can move the camera, but I have to come over here, turn on the station, and then press the button so that the camera can move and you can see me all the way over here. That's not something I really have the time to do when I'm trying to engage a classroom full of students. So I'm gonna move it back. And see, now I'm moving it back to where I was, then I have to come back over here. So the camera does not follow me when I move around. So I felt stuck. I felt myself reverting to, some of us have called it the sage on the stage, or I was just kind of here and I didn't yet figure out how to engage my Zoomers and in-roomers in an equitable way. So I needed practice. I needed to figure this out, and I needed to try some new things that I hadn't ever done before. So that brings us to the second portion of that image. With practice, I started using the Zoom chat more often, screen sharing in more creative ways than I had before, using breakout rooms in different ways than I had before. Also Zoom polls, QR codes so that in-roomers can participate on their phones with any on-screen activities too. And then also shared documents, which I'll explain exactly what that looks like right now. So with that, let me give you a little demo. Every day, or every Monday, Wednesday rather, I open up the Zoom waiting room about 10 minutes before class. And as students log into Zoom, I see them on my screen right here. And they're also on my computer, but I see them on the screen. And just like I did when you all logged in to this workshop, I made sure to say, oh, hey, Vincent, good to see you. Megan, welcome, welcome. Hiromi, nice seeing you. It's been a long time. Like I always talk to them, just like if a student were walking in the door right now, I wouldn't just, I would say something. I'd say, good morning. Good to see you. How's your weekend? So that little gesture before class even starts, in my mind, it goes a long way. It has a big impact on making them feel welcome. And they often unmute and say, hey, professor, how's your weekend? How's your kids? And all that good stuff. So we have a relationship even with their cameras off. Yeah. And then also, as students walk in or log in, I always have a daily agenda, usually just a simple slide like this of what we're doing. This is literally my class agenda from this morning. Again, I teach linguistic anthropology, so that's where some of these terms come from and the learning objectives. And I have reminders, okay? But once class time begins and I welcome them in, go over the learning objective of the day, give them some reminders, I always go into a roll call question of the day. Now, whether you decide to try HyFlex or not, if you teach on campus or hybrid, I love the roll call question of the day, okay? Often it will be something that relates in some way to my lesson for that particular class meeting. And other times it doesn't, that's okay too. But today I asked them, hey, what would you tell a fellow student who's thinking about majoring in anthropology? What would you tell them? And just as I did with you all, I asked my students to type in chat if they're Zooming, or they can raise their hand if they want to unmute and share vocally. And most do the chat, and I'll have a few who unmute and share vocally. And then I also go around to those in room and call on them so that they can share in that space. So they're sharing in different ways, but everyone has that ability to share. So that right there, within the first 5 minutes of class, everybody has shared something. I always like to start on that high note and then get into my lesson. I saw a question in the chat. Oh, Hiromi, to your question, they do not have the option to just stay asynchronous. They need to be in class every Monday, Wednesday. How they choose to do that is up to them. But the async only I opted against because I teach asynchronously the same course anyway, right? So I wanted to get a feel for the Zoom or in person. Yes.
So it is up to you, up to the instructor?
Yes.
Is it? Oh, okay.
So the HyFlex modality, as we've defined it in the class schedule and class notes, emphasizes the in-person and synchronous blend or option. Now, the instructor might decide, okay, I'm going to have, other materials for you on Canvas. But when we put a meeting pattern forward of Monday, Wednesday at 9:35 to 11, we need to abide by that meeting pattern. And I say that because students will take time off of work or change their work schedules or not enroll in other classes to make the meeting schedule that we have put forward. Good question. Thank you for that. So once I do the demo, or excuse me, not the demo, I'm demoing for you. Once I do the class agenda and introduce and roll call, I usually jump into the lesson for the day. And to do that, I'm going to show you a neat trick. And I know this is hard to see because I can pan out the camera. Let me do that so you can see what I have, the setup I have in here. Here we go. Here's my big empty classroom. If you want to teach HyFlex, you can 100% do so with just the in-room computer that is already here. You can put up your slides or your presentation materials, log into Zoom on that computer, and you are ready to go with HyFlex. Now, for me, I don't really use PowerPoint or slideshows when I teach. Typically, when I teach in class, I use the whiteboard, but that wouldn't be very legible to you all who are on Zoom. It would be hard to read and hard to follow along. So instead, I found a solution. I bring in my laptop computer and I log into Zoom on this computer and on the in-room computer. So there's two of me. I mean, you can even see one of the person who is talking right now is called Desktop Professor. And then if I start my video, you can see me right here on my laptop computer. So there's two of me here. But I did that for a very specific reason, so that I can use my iPad to connect to my laptop during a Zoom meeting. And let me zoom in so you can see exactly what that looks like. Okay, when we screen share on Zoom, we have to select desktop 1 or desktop 2 or whatever it may be. But you can also sync your phone or your tablet, depending on what kind of tablet you have. An iPhone or an iPad syncs or matches up quite easily. I will tell you, and my students know this too, that sometimes it takes a few seconds to connect. So I always like to chit chat, give them an introduction while the share screen gets going. Should be going any moment. Okay, oh, there we go. Okay. Sometimes it takes a little bit, but now this is how I start my days, or I've always written the dates and the first topic. And then I go in and I start doing my notes. And I'm writing very, very messy because I'm rushing through this demo. But when I actually teach my classes, you can see, right? I bring in visual aids for the students or a scan from a textbook to talk about, right? We talk about where we write anything I would write on the board. I just put on with my little Apple Pencil and my iPad, and it's on the screen for those of us who are in room, but it's also on Zoom at the same time in the same way. So when I do my lesson, everybody's getting the information at the same time through the same modality, even though they're in different spaces. I mean, you can even do images, right? I mean, I do this all the time, bring in a visual aid and make it bigger. We can highlight, okay, certain elements that I'm talking about for the day. And the students seem to like that approach. I did try a couple of slideshow presentations early on when I was still figuring this out. And they've told me since that they like this a lot better because I can be flexible with what I teach. They can ask me a question and I'll just change directions and okay, let's talk about that. So that's been very positively received by the students. And yes, I do mute my laptop. I mute the sound and I mute the video. Vincent, to your question in the chat. Oh, excuse me, Vincent, I see you. And then Zoila, to your question. Yes, I am on mute. If I unmute, and I had to learn this the hard way, if I unmute my laptop, then I start hearing myself through the laptop and through the speakers. So you get that feedback that we all know from a Zoom meeting. Yeah. Another thing that I do, so I showed you my agenda, how I do lessons and lectures, and then also collaborative activities too. One thing I've learned to really love, let me get out of the agenda, is the use of shared documents. And this is an actual activity I did with my class a few weeks ago. I teach linguistic anthropology. We talk about all parts of language, even the funny parts of language, like slang or jargon. And this is an activity that I gave my students as a way to introduce these topics and get them excited and get them talking before I get into all the technical components behind slang and jargon. But this activity is a Google document. And I put them into breakout rooms and I have them each divided by a column. And they have to define, use it in a sentence, and identify if each slang word is past or present slang. So mood, fleek, joshin. We haven't heard joshin in a while, huh? Yeah. And they think it's really fun. And it's a great way to introduce this particular topic. So then I put them in a breakout rooms, 4 of them, with 3 or 4 students each. And then the in-roomers can participate together as a group. And often I might sit with them and have, type in whatever they're talking about so that everybody's part of the discussion. And actually, this is a blank. When I actually did this in my class, this was the outcome. So they had a really clearly collaborative discussion in these breakout rooms. And that's the thing. Whenever I do a breakout room activity, I always require a product by the end of it. Because when I have people in room, I can't very easily go between the breakout rooms to check if they're doing their work. But if I have something that they need to produce at the end of it, then I have a pretty good sense. Okay, they're doing their work. So this is just one example. But again, I always share these documents. Take it from anyone with the link, can be an editor, and then just copy that link. And right now I'm just putting it into the chat. That's exactly what I do with my students, what I just did for you. And they go on and participate in that activity. Yeah. So that's been, for me, really, really fun. A fun way to get them engaged and keep them excited and also build connections among their peers. So that was my quick demo. Let's start wrapping up. If you are interested in trying HyFlex for yourself, I have a few items of advice for you. 1, look at the enrollment trends for that class. Told you, anthropology or linguistic anthropology, it's a small specialized subject. Even before COVID, I've only taught 1 section per semester. So therefore, it makes sense that that 1 section per semester offer this sort of flexibility. However, If you say, I'm just gonna pick on like psychology 1, okay, that has like 100 sections every semester. I would suggest that HyFlex doesn't necessarily make sense. I would recommend just do it on campus or synchronous or asynchronous as separate sections. Okay, when you have so many options already, I don't know if the HyFlex would be as impactful as it would with these smaller specialized courses that may struggle with enrollment anyway. The second item or second recommendation, know your limits. And I mean that's really twofold. One, know your technological limits. It's okay if technology frustrates you. It frustrates me sometimes too. But if it gets you to the point of frustration where you feel like you just have to stop your lesson, throw up your hands and say, class, we're done for the day, then maybe this modality isn't the best fit for you. And that's okay. I am not suggesting this for everybody, right? But then there's also knowing your limits as in knowing your limits regarding the student-to-student interaction. I told you earlier that sometimes it's hard to be in here with one student or two students. When I bring in my energy, 9:35 a.m. in the morning, and I'm ready to go with my lesson, and I only see two faces. So if that sounds daunting to you, or if that doesn't necessarily sound fulfilling to you, then be aware of your limit and think very carefully about HyFlex. Third, practice, practice, practice. I cannot emphasize that enough. Before the semester starts, go in your classroom at the same time of day that you would be teaching it and practice setting up, practice your activities, practice your screen sharing, have a colleague or a friend on the other side of the Zoom call, make sure they can hear you okay. And I don't mean practice once, I mean practice multiple times before you even meet your students. I wasn't able to. I got COVID the 2 weeks before the semester started. So I was not able to come in and practice. But if you want to do this, and if I continue to do it, I'm going to practice before the course begins. And you'll find out little things. Like, for example, at 9:35 a.m., there's a big window right here facing east. And as the sun rises, the sunlight can be very bright through those windows, making it hard for the Zoom students to see some things that I am doing in the classroom. So things like that, you're only going to find out if you go in ahead of time, at the time of day when the class meets. And fourth, be flexible, roll with the tech issues, and always have a plan B. If the camera's not working, okay, class, no big deal. I'm just going to turn on my laptop camera, and forgive me, I'm going to be stuck right here, but we're going to be okay. All right? Hey, my iPad ran out of battery. That's okay. You know what? I'm just going to make some slides real quick while you do this discussion activity. Go do that while I do this. So always be ready to roll with the technological challenges because they will happen. They're going to happen, right? They happen to me just the other day. Okay. So a few things to keep in mind, but I know you have more questions. We have a good 10 minutes for them. So I do want to thank you for your time and coming today. And any question that you have, please let's talk about it. You can raise hands, you can type in chat. Oh, thanks so much. Hiromi, please go ahead. Yes.
Yes, hi. I have a lot of questions.
Okay,
First of all,
let's start with one and spread it around a little bit.
okay, first of all, thank you so much for sharing the feedback with us. It's really helpful because I am advocate for HyFlex, and I've been advocating for HyFlex for my department and for a couple of years, but I was told like last year that our school is not going in the direction of HyFlex. And then we moved, our department or our school moved to M building, and each classroom is equipped with most advanced technology ready for HyFlex. And although I was told that our school is not going for HyFlex, they said they're still open for conversation. So I'm still like having conversation with them. And I'm thinking of proposing like piloting with just one of my classes. Okay, so first of all, so how do you promote student to student interaction? Do students in a room and the students online, how do they like work together if you make a breakout room sessions? That's one question.
Yes, so let me get to that student-to-student interaction. So in that case, whenever I do a breakout room activity, it's the Zoomers in their breakout rooms and it's the in-roomers working together. But then after that breakout activity, we always do a sharing out where students on Zoom and in room get to talk with each other and take turns sharing. I'll say, for example, breakout room 1, please share with us what you found. And then in roomers, let's share what they found, and they can ask each other questions. Another thing that I did this semester, what was remarkably successful, is I had students write a big research paper, but then they did a presentation where they got to be in my shoes and either stand up here or from home share their Zoom screen and give a presentation to the class. And then the classmates asked them questions and gave them support, and that worked very, very well. So a couple ways there, always encouraging, do you have follow-up questions? I'm nudging them along so they interact with their peers. Yes.
So when they do group activities, originally, like initially, they just work with the students in the same modality first. Like, okay, yes. I see. Okay.
Yeah. Great.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And then the white.
I need to move on to other people so that others get a chance to share. But let's circle back if no one else has questions. Okay.
Oh, yeah, go.
Thank you. I'd like to hear from Julie next, please.
Hi, Michael. Thank you so much for doing this. This is a really interesting idea. I just wonder, you've said that, you had, a small-ish class. I'm just wondering how, with, even 30 or 40 students, how you would see them all on the screen or see that they're all there.
Yeah. No, it's a good point, because in some ways, and the grass is always greener, in some ways, I wish I had 40, because it seems like if I had 40, maybe I'd have, 5 to 10 in class every day to distribute that ratio a little bit more. But you're right, you bring up a good point. When I'm in the classroom, and I'll adjust the screen so you can see it a little bit better. This is what the in-roomers see. And there's only so much I can do it so that everybody is on screen, see? So I can just drag the Zoom window so we can see everybody. But even then, now my presentation starts to get a little smaller for the people in the classroom. So yes, I think it is possible for a class up to 40, but it would present different challenges than what I personally experienced.
Can I just ask one more thing about attendance?
Sure, real quick, then Vincent, yes.
Okay, so in my on-campus classes, they're required to be in class and attend class. And, if they don't attend, if they miss 3 or 4 class meetings, I try to contact them, but, ultimately may drop them. What do you do with this? They either have to be in class or synchronous is the way that you do it.
That's right. And I take attendance every day, and I use the attendance tracking tool in Canvas. And if they miss a class or 2, they get an email from me. Hey, please return. And and I'm honest, my attendance from the 20 students I currently have is very strong. Granted, they're mostly on Zoom, but they attend. So yes. Good questions. Thank you, Julie. Let's go to Vincent, and I'm also checking the chat as well.
Yeah, hi, Michael. I hope everybody can hear me. I don't really have a question, but more of a comment. I will say, Michael, I reached out to you before kind of about this HyFlex and kind of what you were doing with that. I totally advocate for this too as well. You know what I'm saying? I think it's a really forward-thinking thing and strategy in terms of providing education. And I think that you know that too as well by doing the research. Just to piggyback off what Julie was asking earlier, I will say if you have not got a chance to come to M Building M217, more specifically the class that I teach in, I literally have monitors all the way around that classroom. So unlike the T building, Michael, that you're teaching in, I literally can see all my students all the time, and it seems almost natural as if you were there. And so that Zoom thing in the background with the people's faces on there and the names, I literally have it broadcasted to like several different screens. So it's as if you're in some sort of auditorium. So I guess depending on the setup, right, of the classroom, it really works. I think the only thing that we don't have in that room are the microphones that you have in your room all over the place. So I literally have to have like a lavalier on my person to use that. But thanks so much for sharing, by the way. And I would love to chat with you a little bit more offline whenever you get a chance to come over to M, or I can kind of see your setup and we kind of collaborate, if you will. But thank you.
Absolutely. No, thank you for that, Vincent. I've heard wonderful things about the capabilities of the M classrooms. Yeah, you're right. I'm in T. You even see, I need to look back because it kind of makes me feel like I'm actually having a conversation with you when I'm just looking at that.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
But I like the connection of also gesturing to the screen too. Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. And, and I will say, if it's okay, my students, I have not surveyed them yet. I've probably done HyFlex for a couple semesters now, and they love it. I mean, I have like full enrollments. I have very little attrition in many of my classes. And a lot of students just take my class because, quite frankly, the flexibility, right, is there, and it meets their needs too as well. I mean, 2-hour commutes, daycare, the challenges that our student body has. So I think it's just the wave of the future.
Yes, I agree. And I also want faculty who are going to be teaching this way to be really well informed of the opportunities and challenges that HyFlex can provide. So thank you. And we're right at 3:30 on the dot. I'm not going to run out of the room or anything because I know some folks still have questions. But if you need to go, I want to thank you for being here with me today. Please reach out to me, email me with questions, comments. You want to try this out, but you're not sure quite what to do. Let's have a chat. But otherwise, I am going to stop the recording now, and I will be around. So feel free to stick around. But otherwise, have a marvelous day. Thank you so much for being here.